This is hilarious.
We're looking at the harvest where we're looking at our soybean, corn, wheat, sorghum, cotton farmers who are facing very, very difficult times. We are currently in conversations here at the White House, across the government on a farmer aid package. In our current programming right now, we've got about $13 billion moving out under ECAP, which is our old farmer payment system based on losses from last year and the year before. So this would be in addition to that, in partnership with our colleagues on the Hill. We should have an announcement very soon, perhaps in the next couple of weeks.
Because of tariffs, we're doing unbelievable. We're making more money than we ever have made. And by the way, we're going to take some of that tariff money that we made, just to get off the subject for a second. We're going to take some of that tariff money that we made. We're going to give it to our farmers, who are for a little while going to be hurt until it kicks in. The tariffs kick into their benefit. So we're going to make sure that our farmers are in great shape because we're taking in a lot of money. We're finding, the other day, it was very interesting, they found $31 billion. They said, sir, we found 31. I said, you mean positively, right? They said, yeah, 31 million more than we knew. And they said, we don't know where it came from. I said, check the tariff shelf. They came back the following morning. They said, you're right, sir, it came from the tariffs. We've never seen anything like this. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking some money from all of the tariff money that we've taken, and we're going to distribute it to our farmers until the tariffs kick into their benefit, which ultimately the farmers are going to be making a fortune. But it's a process of, it has to kick in.
Hey, MAGA, you remember all that winning you were supposed to do under Donald Trump? And now with all the tariffs and his crappy economic policies, you guys are losing your health care, losing your Social Security, losing your benefits, losing your jobs. Well, now you're losing your farms. And the people in Arkansas can tell you, they can't even break even, and most of them are going out of business. They're not being farmers anymore. But instead of a bailout, Trump is like, oh, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Because he and J.D. Vance actually have stock in companies that are buying up that lost farmland when farmers go broke. But you know how you guys always love to claim that Trump loves the farmers and he loves you guys so much, even though in public at rallies he has literally stated to your face that he doesn't care about you? Well, let me tell you something. The biggest crop that we export is soybeans. And now that China's not really buying our soybeans anymore because Trump jacked up tariffs on them, China's now buying them from Argentina, who has since dropped their tariffs on them. So now farmers across the country are being left holding the bag of soybeans that are practically worthless. This is going to have another massive effect on our GDP, by the way. And as all these farmers continue to go bankrupt because of these tariffs that you guys think are going to make you all millionaires, China just found a way to go around us and give us the middle finger. And apparently MAGA stands for Make Argentina Great Again. Meanwhile, our economy's going down the toilet. And you guys have a massive problem with conservatives attacking and shooting your own conservatives. Let me know when you guys are done with the charade and the whole cult bullshit, because this is really fucking embarrassing.
I'm never going to do anything to hurt our farmers. The One Big Beautiful Bill will also be an incredible victory for American farmers, another group that we did great with, especially family farmers.
Never thought I was going to lose this much money, this fast.
Jim is a Republican who voted for Donald Trump 3 times.
How do you feel about your vote for Donald Trump now?
Well, I feel like perhaps I should have considered some other options.
I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate.
We are very concerned about the current outlook. As a soybean farmer, we are dependent on trade. Right at 50% of the soybeans produced in the United States are exported. China takes more of our soybeans than all other foreign customers combined. So they're a major part of our market. And this trade war is very concerning to us right now.
Now, I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on.
He said, I love you, Mr. Trump. I need to see the fruit of your love.
Hello friends, welcome back to another Think Out Loud breakdown. If you're new here, pull up a chair and grab your coffee. This is the spot where we laugh, we learn, and we sometimes wonder out loud how much FAFO a country can take before it runs out of duct tape. And to my loyal crew, you already know, it feels good to be back with the family. Now, if you've been here a while, you remember we already did a big breakdown on MAGA farmers, but today we're zooming in on soybeans, America's #1 cash crop, the golden child of the Midwest. And now, the most awkward bean at the barbecue. And listen, around here we're not shy about dissecting FAFO. Sector by sector, subsector by subsector. Heck, if I have to go crop by crop, bean by bean, I will. Because the irony in this story, it's richer than the topsoil in Iowa. Here's the setup. For years, China was America's biggest soybean customer, buying more than half our exports. That's not just a customer. That's like your best friend who always picks up the check. But then Trump decides to play trade war chicken with Beijing, and poof, that golden ticket is gone. China slides over to Brazil and never looks back. MAGA farmers, meanwhile, are cheering short-term pain, long-term gain, while standing next to silos full of beans that no one wants. And now, there's even talk of another bailout package. Yep, lining up for another round of taxpayer soy sauce to cover the bitter taste. And the same folks who preach no handouts are out here polishing their forks for a second serving. Oh, and before we get too deep, I saw your comments asking for an FAFO edition on truckers. Don't worry, it's on the way. I may not respond to every single comment, but I read them all, I appreciate you all, and honestly, you're the reason this community feels like home.
Here are 5 reasons why I hate Donald Trump. Folks, I'll get straight to the point. Donald Trump is a disaster. He's not just a bad president. He's a reckless, corrupt, selfish con man who is wrecking this country from the inside out. And if we don't stop him now, he'll do even worse. So here's why I hate what he's done to America. Number 1, his tariffs are a job-killing scam, folks. Trump wants you to think that his tariffs make America stronger. That's an outright damn lie. His tariffs are a direct tax on American businesses and consumers. He's jacking up prices on everything from cars to groceries, hurting American workers and pushing companies to move overseas. He doesn't understand trade, and he doesn't care that his policies are making your life more expensive. Number 2, he's tanking the stock market and your retirement with it. Wall Street is in chaos because of Trump's ego-driven, unpredictable economic policies. The market has plunged because investors know Trump is incompetent and unstable. And your 401k, your pension, he doesn't give a damn about it. He's too busy throwing tantrums on Truth Social while hardworking Americans like you and me watch our retirement savings go up in smoke. Number 3, his immigration plans are cruel and idiotic. Trump's mass deportation plans aren't just cruel. They're dumb. Our economy needs immigrant workers, and he wants to round them up and throw them out like garbage. Businesses will shut down.
Trump announced that he wants to bail out the farmers that are losing their farms and going bankrupt from his tariff war by using the revenue generated from the tariffs. You know, the tariffs that every other American is paying. So, sounds like socialism to me. Now, all of this is due, or he wants to include it in the omnibus bill due by November 21st. So none of those farmers are actually going to see any of that until at least early 2026. So all those farmers that complain about socialism, say it's bad, vote against their best interests, are going to be clamoring for that good old government money to bail them out yet again. Those farmers aren't going to survive till then. Those farms are going to go bankrupt. They're going to lose their farms. They're going to get bought up by big agricultural conglomerates who will then get the bailout money from the government, who are able to weather the months of not being able to sell any of their commodities to other countries.
This is a soybean. Right now, millions of tons of these are sitting in fields just like this, with nowhere to go because of Washington's trade wars. Americans already pay 86% of the tariffs. And now, Washington's idea of a solution is to take even more of your money to bail out farmers for a problem that they created. If Washington won't be serious about helping the American people, I will.
Nah, farmers did that. Farmers did that. They voted for him not once, not twice, 3 times. MAGA, Trump supporters did that. And now we're finding out the consequences of your racism, of your bigotry, of your sexism. We're finding all that out. This is what they call an FAFO. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, how much soybean farmers are going to lose. They've gotten 0 sales, and they sell all their soybeans to China. They voted for a guy who screwed them over the first time. They voted for him 3 times, and a lot of them said they would vote for him again.
those numbers are bleak. How difficult is it to be a soybean farmer right now?
Well, we depend on the Chinese market. And the reason we depend so much on this market is China consumes 61% of soybeans produced worldwide. The rest of the world is 39%. Of the soybeans that American farmers produce, 25% currently have been going to China. And right now, we have zero sold for this crop that's starting to be harvested right now. So it's a five-alarm fire for our industry that 25% of our total sales is currently missing. And right now, we are not price competitive with Brazil due to the retaliatory tariffs that are in place. Our prices are about 20% higher, and that means that the Chinese are going elsewhere because they can find a better value. And the American soybean farmers and their families are suffering. There's 500,000 of us that produce soybeans, and we desperately need markets, and we need opportunity, and we need a level playing field so we can compete, because we grow a great product, but we have to be price competitive as well. And there's an artificial barrier that is built with these tariffs that makes us not be competitive.
And Caleb, you are out, in the equipment right there. We can see that you're up there. You're talking about harvesting is happening right now. Once your crops are harvested, what is going to happen to all of that supply?
Well, the concern is that prices will continue to drop. In certain areas of the country that have higher transportation costs, the basis has dropped to record low levels. Right now, the Chicago price is a little over $10 for a bushel of soybeans, but there's places in North Dakota where the basis is $1.70 under the market. So their soybeans are only worth a little over $8. And cost of production for a bushel of soybeans varies farm to farm, but it's around $12 per bushel. And soybean farmers are going to experience huge losses this year. The farm economy is already struggling due to many factors, including high cost of production, which tariffs are impacting as well. And we just need a level playing field. We need a free market to work. And American farmers are great at producing, but we don't need these barriers out of our control put up that make us uncompetitive in both selling our soybeans and in purchasing the inputs that are required to grow them, such as fertilizer, pesticides, seed, equipment. The aluminum and steel tariffs have a huge impact on the equipment we use as well. So this hits us on all sides.
Absolutely. I mean, farming is such a vital part of our economy, of just America's way of life. So, Caleb, some farmers now in the U.S. are turning to things like Airbnb or corn mazes to try to outlast this downturn. Do you know any farmers who are doing this? Do you think that would be enough to really get farmers through this downturn? How long do you think that you and other farmers like you can sustain your livelihood if things stay like this?
Well, soybean farmers have a huge amount invested. An Airbnb is not going to help a farmer that's looking at losing $1 million or huge numbers. I mean, right now, it's predicted soybean farmers can lose $200 or more per acre on this crop. A farmer like myself, we have 1,200 acres of soybeans. That's $240,000 of loss. That's a whole lot of Airbnb and other alternative forms of income. We have long-term investments that are made in infrastructure, in land, in equipment, and this is not an industry that you just enter and exit on a whim. We have huge long-term financial commitments, and we just need the markets to be there. We have worked to develop the Chinese market as an industry for over 40 years, and it's been a wonderful relationship. We simply don't need artificial barriers put up. I also want to note soybeans are the #1 agriculture export for our country. This is huge for the economy of our country as a whole, and also for the rural communities that we represent.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.
If I see another farmer on TV crying and whining about their situation, I'm going to go insane. Let's get into it. So I'm kind of piggybacking off a video I saw yesterday, the day before, from Middle Aged Rider. Go follow him if you're not doing it already. He's got good content. But I am just so sick of seeing farmers crying and whining because they can't sell their soybeans or whatever crop they've got. I'm going to remind you what these same fucking farmers were saying back in 2019 when the same bullshit was happening, and they still showed up to vote for this fucking maniac who tried to overturn an election, who got convicted of felonies, found liable for sexual assault. They had no problem showing right back up for this motherfucker, and I'm going to show you why. So back in 2019 and 2020, you can see here that farmers were given billions and billions and billions of dollars of straight cash payments, checks written of $100,000 or more sent straight to them. Look, $28 billion in 2 years, all because of his trade war. You can see here, farm subsidies jumped to their most in 14 years back in 2019. This farmer here who was interviewed could not sell his soybeans to China because of Trump's tariffs back in 2019. And then he said, Trump money is what we call it. It helped a lot, and my understanding is they're going to do it again. So yes, boy, they loved that government money coming to them, didn't they? Shows right here. Thousands of farmers got more than $100,000 each. Roughly twice as much as the actual harm. I mean, they was just throwing them money. And now they want to come back 5 years later, whining and crying and bitching and moaning. I'm so sick of it. I'm going to show you a farmer from North Dakota right now who did a damn interview, and she tells you just exactly how fucking selfish they all are.
Jager says that ever since the August 1st tariffs took place, she's been worried about her income, loans, and bills. She says that she's never had to worry before about her crops not having a market. China, which usually buys the largest amount of soybeans from U.S. farmers, has stopped because of tariffs.
Out against everything, knowing that agriculture in America needs an international market, it's just really unfair. You know, how about you look at the items that you really could tariff that won't affect so many people.
I mean, are you fucking kidding me? Tariffs for all of us. She don't mind that. Tariff everybody else, but don't tariff us. I mean, completely selfish assholes. Everybody saw what was coming. If you are a fucking Trump voter, I'm out of empathy for you, okay? You deserve to live with the fucking consequences of the decision that you made, just like everybody else has to live with the fucking decision that you made.
Has anybody figured out where our bumper crop of soybeans are going? Yeah, because this administration has messed things up so badly with China. China goes, yeah, keep your soybeans, we're good. The biggest buyer in the world of soybeans has said, don't worry about it, we're good. So why doesn't somebody tell me or tell the U.S. farmers that are bringing in all these soybeans, tell them what they're going to do with them? Somebody needs to come up with a plan and really, really quick. Because guess what? China said, thanks, but no thanks. So where are all these soybeans going to go? Does anybody know? Does anybody care? Because I'm sure the farmers are freaking out right now because they have a bumper crop of soybeans that, nobody wants. At least China doesn't want. And China's the biggest, largest buyer. I mean, we could be selling the small countries, but it's not going to put a dent in the soybeans that we have. Is anyone going to start talking about this? Or are we just going to pretend it's not a massive, huge problem because of this administration? Like and follow for more.
American farmers are sounding the alarm. They say President Trump's tariffs could be killing their bottom lines, even as they see record crops this year.
Today's actions, we're also standing up for our great farmers and ranchers who are brutalized by nations all over the world.
Out the U.S. farm export to China is soybeans. Fox 6's Ashley Sears shows us the impact right here on the Badger State.
Soybeans were once the pride of American farming, the crop that fed economies and filled bank accounts across the Midwest. Today, that story has flipped. Exports to China, the single largest customer, have collapsed by 77%. Futures that were soaring not long ago are now nearly 40% below their 3-year high. And in towns built on agriculture, silos are stacked to the brim with unsold beans, forcing farmers to take losses they can't afford. What used to be a dependable cash crop has turned into a heavy weight, dragging the industry down. The silence from Beijing is louder than any deal ever signed. With 0 new orders placed this year, the question grows harder to ignore. Has America's so-called green gold already been stripped of its value? And if the world's biggest market is closing its doors, where does the American farmer turn next? The figures on trade charts only hint at the damage. The real toll is written across farm country, where every missed payment and every acre harvested at a loss weighs heavier than any statistic could capture. Farmers across the Midwest aren't tracking percentages on spreadsheets. They are deciding which bills can wait, which equipment can survive another season without repair, and whether their families can hold on to the land passed down for generations. Soybean futures hover near $10 a bushel, when the average cost of production runs closer to 11. On paper, the gap looks small. Spread across hundreds or thousands of acres, it drains entire incomes and forces producers deeper into debt. Caleb Ragland, president of the American Soybean Association, disclosed that his own farm has already taken on losses of nearly $750,000, and that the only way forward was to borrow more in the hope of surviving the storm. His story is far from unique.
This is a 24-hour job, so I need people who are willing to work in shifts at different times of the day.
But it's hard to find those people.
Yeah.
In 2024, over 200 family farms filed for bankruptcy, a 55% jump from the year before. The squeeze has been merciless. Rising interest rates eat away at already thin margins, while costs for fertilizer, fuel, and machinery rise higher, many of them inflated by tariffs on imported steel, aluminum, and potash. Farmers are trapped in a vice, squeezed by falling prices on one side and ballooning expenses on the other. The erosion of profit is matched only by the erosion of optimism. Choices that once seemed unthinkable are now routine. Downsizing operations, leasing out land, or stepping away from farms that once stood as symbols of American resilience. A way of life that shaped the heartland for more than a century is now balanced on the edge of collapse. The weight pressing down on farmers is not only the decline in prices, but the very policies that were sold as protection. Tariffs piled onto tariffs have transformed what was once America's advantage, abundant, competitively priced soybeans, into a burden too costly for buyers to carry. An extra 10% duty raised the overall rate to 20%, and with additional levies factored in, the real barrier climbed to roughly 34%. For China, the calculation was simple. American soybeans were no longer affordable. What had once been a steady supply turned into an overpriced gamble. Beijing, the largest buyer in the world, stepped away from US contracts almost overnight, severing a lifeline that supported millions of acres across the Midwest. Farmers know this kind of pain all too well. Between 2018 and 2020, agriculture absorbed more than $26 billion in losses from an earlier trade conflict, and soybeans carried the heaviest blow at nearly $20 billion. That episode left scars across rural America. Yet what is happening today feels more dangerous because the losses arrive in a world with less room for recovery and fewer chances to adapt. Many analysts warn that this is not a repeat of the past, but a deeper fracture in the foundation of US agriculture. While American producers fight to survive, rivals have been busy filling the void. Brazil and Argentina, long eager to expand their reach, stepped into the gap without hesitation. As Washington and Beijing wrestled over tariffs, China quietly rewrote its supply chain, pushing orders southward and locking in deals with nations willing to deliver without the shadow of political disputes. Officials in Beijing reportedly instructed importers to halt US soybean purchases entirely, closing the door on what had once been America's most critical export market. The numbers leave little doubt about the shift. In 2024, 71% of China's soybean imports came from Brazil, while the US share fell to only 20%. By 2025, the gap had widened even further. From January through July, China imported more than 42 million tons from Brazil and only 16.5 million from the United States. By October, South America shipped another 7.4 million tons, covering an astonishing 95% of China's monthly needs. China's strategy is clear: reduce dependence on American supply and deepen ties with partners that can guarantee deliveries without political obstacles. For the United States, the message could not be harsher. Global markets do not wait. When one door closes, another supplier is waiting to secure it permanently. The consequences extend far beyond farm fields. Soybeans are more than a crop. They are a pillar of the US economy. They support jobs, sustain trade balances, and keep entire regions afloat. When that foundation begins to crack, the ripple effects move quickly. Analysts warn that if China stays out of the market until November, US exports could fall by another 14 to 16 million tons. That drop would not only strip billions in farm income, but also undercut transport networks, storage facilities, and processing plants that depend on consistent grain flows. Agriculture makes up nearly 19% of the US gross domestic product when all related sectors are counted, a staggering $9.5 trillion. Within that, soybeans account for over 230,000 American jobs. Every contract lost in the global market doesn't end with the farmer. It puts pressure on truck drivers who haul grain to ports, dock workers who load ships, and factory crews whose shifts rely on processing soy into oil and feed. When that chain weakens, it threatens to unravel entire communities. History has already shown the danger. The last trade war carved out close to $20 billion in soybean.
It's not good for anybody.
Cambridge farmer Doug Fuller has been in the business almost 5 decades. He's tiring of the tariff talk, and his solution to make things right is simple. Best case scenario for this year?
That we never have to talk about tariffs again. Free trade is the answer.
China not buying U.S. soybeans just adds to dwindling hopes, as Fuller expects to start harvesting his beans around October 1st. With little hope, China will go on a spending spree.
Doubtful. This has been dragging on, and there doesn't seem, they don't really want to talk with us, and it's just kind of a stalemate right now.
American workers and American taxpayers have been taken advantage of for multi-generation, for decades, and it's time for somebody to stand up and put us first and put the country first and do what's best for the country, not what's best for the politicians.
Even if you as a farmer suffer.
That's right.
I mean, some people would hear that and be quite surprised that you're prepared to put your livelihood, your family's livelihood, on the line for the sake of politics.
Well, that's my duty as for being the head of my household. I've got to do what I got to do, what's going to be better for the future, better for the kids. It's not about today. It's about the long term. The long game is where the rewards are going to be.
But don't the price of tariffs and what happens in commodity markets like soybean, doesn't that affect you in the short term and affect your ability to provide for your family?
Look, tariffs will probably have a detrimental effect on soybean price in the near future. In the long term, it'll probably work out. I'm a farmer. I deal with bad weather. I deal with dry weather. I deal with torrential rains. We deal with hurricanes. What's a tariff going to do? I got to raise a crop. If I was worried, I'd stay home and not raise a crop. If I was worried about it, I still got to get out there and raise my crop to get the price. If you don't get the yield, it doesn't make any difference. I got to deal with all these other things. What's a tariff? I can't control that, so it is what it is.
These Republican voting farmers are finding out the hard way. Caleb Ragland grows soybeans in Kentucky. He's voted for Trump every election since 2016. And now, he calls the current crisis Farmageddon. Why is he calling it Farmageddon? Because Trump's trade war shut down their biggest customer, China. Soybeans used to be a $25 billion export. Now they're sitting in bins unsold while Brazil cashes in. And Caleb's not alone. Eric Yukin, a 7th-generation farmer in Iowa, with 750 acres of corn and 600 of soybeans, also voted for Trump in 2024. I didn't anticipate it being as bad as it is, he says. You didn't remember Trump screwing you guys over his last presidency? The funniest quote he says is that it's kind of the government that's put us in this situation. Eric, you don't say. He says pigs and cattle are keeping his farm afloat, barely. But there's no clear plan from D.C. Just a maybe later bill that won't help until next year. This year's crop is rotting. We don't know what's happening day to day, Yukin says. Man, what a great guy to vote for. Someone that you have no idea what he'll screw up next. The last time we had bailouts was to buy future votes. Now, it doesn't matter anymore, he says. Ding, ding, ding. We got a winner, Eric. Trump's not coming to save you. He got what he wanted. Power, attention, money, and chaos. While you got tariffs, bankruptcy, and empty silos. And now that the votes are in and the markets are gone, he's moving on. While you're still out in the field waiting for a harvest that has nowhere to go. I hope you like soybeans, because there's going to be plenty of leftovers for you to eat.
It's crazy a little plant like this can cause so much heartache. This is a soybean crop, and let's talk about them. In ag economics, we talk about supply and demand. Supply is how much soybeans we have internationally. So that means Brazil, Argentina, the United States were the three largest producers. And so it's how much is available in that market. And then demand is how much buyers like China, who's the largest in the world, want for animal feed and oil production, a whole bunch of things. When considering the curve, as demand shifts to the right, prices go up. And as demand shifts to the left, prices go down and surplus goes up. Now let's talk about China, the United States, and Brazil. As we know, China is the biggest buyer and U.S. and Brazil are the biggest suppliers. When China buys from Brazil, that creates a surplus in the United States, and that means prices go down. And we've been through this before. In 2018, the U.S. put tariffs on Chinese goods, and the Chinese responded with a 25% tariff on U.S. soybeans, which effectively took us out of the market. And then in 2020, we had a bounce back on the soybean markets because the United States and China came to a trade agreement, and that demand curve shifted to the right and prices went back up. So yes, tariffs and political intervention have a lot to do with the agricultural markets. But it's important to understand that bigger forces are also at work. Over the last 20 years, Brazil has become an agricultural powerhouse of the world. And even with the absence of tariffs, Brazil still trades more beans and does more agricultural trade than the United States with China. In the beginning of the year, China buys Brazil's fresh beans because they come off in February. And then towards the end of the year, that's when the United States bean crop comes off. And that's typically when they buy from us. In fact, it's so supply and demand driven that South American supply and North American supply, depending if they're skewed or not, if South America has a good crop year and North America doesn't, that can swing prices more so than politics can. It also has a lot to do with the strength of the US dollar or the strength of the Brazilian note. I'm not exactly sure what their dollar's called. A strong US dollar makes beans more expensive and corn more expensive internationally. So naturally, they'll go to a cheaper option like Brazil or Argentina. So while it does suck, it's nothing new. It's something we've been through before, and it did turn out okay, but it has hurt the crop this year. So the way the market moves isn't just determined by politics. It has a lot to do with weather, global supply, and long-term competition and agreements that Brazil has as well. Well, we moved fields. We're in cotton now, but we're still talking about soybeans. How do we protect ourselves from these market movements, from these international trade agreements? You're not going to like the answer. I think we need to grow less. Well, personally, I think we're oversupplied on soybeans, and we need to go towards other cropping systems that support domestic market and trade. I think it looks like we need to grow enough soybeans to be able to support the animal market, the hogs, the chickens, the cows, all that with soybean meal, and also the crush market to where we can make biodiesel out of it, but not have as much of a surplus that relies on Chinese trade. Consolidation of acres, consolidation of crop, diversifying the cropping systems, and trying to bring in new areas of production. We can't just be a one-trick pony. I think a lot of the problem that we see is we don't have these farms built up and healthy enough financially to where they can survive some of these hard times. And so that's an education and a cultural issue. I don't know. The problem's bigger than me, but it is interesting to talk about. Let me know what you think in the comments. Y'all have a good day.
So the Chinese balance of trade data came out today, and I was thinking about soybean farmers. Stick with me and I'll explain. So the data basically tells us what we expect. The US and China are in a trade war with each other, so they're exporting and importing less from each other. And this is having a direct impact on a particular group in a big way. And there's a lot of viral videos about this guy here. And he's kind of a leader in the soybean world. And what's happening is they've basically lost their complete orders. The Chinese have said, great, you want tariffs with us, we'll go and get our soybean elsewhere. And the US hardly consumes soybeans. The Chinese are massive consumers of soybeans. So it just made me think that the impact on working and middle class people in the US is huge. And this guy is obviously, I don't know why he's voted for them, but it doesn't seem logical that he's kind of voted for his own demise. But all I can see is like partisan politics, which is enjoying somebody else's suffering, and the billionaire sort of overlord class, whether it's Donald Trump or somebody else, it's had no impact on their lives whatsoever. So I'm intrigued with your view on this. Put it in the comments down below, please. Is it partisan politics that are just allowing this kind of thing to happen? Kind of people are unable to communicate and empathize with each other? Or is it that, you know, he should suffer for his decisions? Please leave it in the comments. I'm really interested in what you've got to say. Please like, share, and follow if you want to see some more.
So Donald Trump messing the economy up again. Let's talk about it. So hardworking U.S. farmers made about $3 billion in soybean sales, and right now we are at a fat zero so far in 2025. This is bad because this generates 200,000 jobs for the American farmer every single year. In addition, this was an attempt to hurt China, but it failed, and here's why. Historically, China has accounted for 25% of U.S. soybean sales. This attempt to hurt China backfired because South America is now eating up that market share while leaving the American farmer out in the wind. And if you don't remember, this was part of the reason why we had 500 American farmer bankruptcies under the first Trump administration. So this is very bad.
Doug Fuller's family has been farming in northern Polk County for generations.
Now I get to call all the shots.
He's already nervous about the cash crop he's about to start planting. Soybeans are the target of China's retaliatory tariff, 10% on certain imports from the United States, in response to President Trump's 10% blanket tariff on Chinese goods. Fuller is fearful it spells bad news for the 2025 harvest.
You know, they aren't good for the other countries, they aren't good for me, and who could blame them putting reciprocal tariffs on us? You know, it's just a match, you know, and nobody's going to win.
China is one of the largest overseas markets for American soybeans. According to the USDA, the United States exported nearly $13 billion in soybeans to China last year alone. Fuller has already faced 2 years of bean prices dropping and says it looks as if the trend may continue.
Last year, we took a step back, and now we're taking another step back. So I'm, you know, many of us we'll get through it, and it's going to be tough on others.
Why he's got me saying Trump was right. Oh, yeah. So Donald Trump messing the economy up again. Let's talk about it. So hardworking U.S. farmers made about $3 billion in soybean sales, and right now we are at a fat zero so far in 2025. This is bad because this generates 200,000 jobs for the American farmer every single year. In addition, this was an attempt to hurt China, but it failed, and here's why. Historically, China has accounted for 25% of U.S. soybean sales. This attempt to hurt China backfired because South America is now eating up that market share while leaving the American farmer out in the wind. And if you don't remember, this was part of the reason why we had 500 American farmer bankruptcies under the first Trump administration. So this is very bad.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.